Hi guys, welcome or welcome back. Thank you so very much for being here. I appreciate it so much. Today we're talking about a girl named Tessa Majors. She's an 18-year-old girl. So before we start, let me just put out my disclaimers that do not take what I say as facts. Please always do your own research. And if you think that something in the story might be a little too heavy for you, please feel free to click off and come back for a different one. And with that, let's start. So, Tessa Majors was born on May 11th, 2001, in Charlottesville, Virginia, to parents Inman and Christy Majors. She had one sibling and a younger brother named Maxwell. Her father, Inman, is an English professor at James Madison University, and he has published 6 books: The Millionaires, Penelope Lemon, Operation Dimwit, Wonder Dog, Swimming in Sky, Loves Winning Plays. Tessa was described as a unique soul with a great personality. She had an amazing sense of humor. She was diligent and she was caring. She would bring light to every single room that she entered. She loved music and she played and sang in a band called Patient Zero. She graduated from St. Anne's Belfield School in May of 2019, where she led the Creative Writing Club. She ran cross country, and she volunteered at political campaigns. After graduation, she went on to attend Barnard College in Manhattan. And in December of 2019, she was finishing up her first semester at Barnard, where she was going to school to study journalism. December 11th, 2019, somewhere between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m., Tessa Majors was walking through Morningside Park in Morningside Heights, Manhattan. She was walking through the park, looking down at her phone, when 3 teens ran up behind her, kicked her in the back, and demanded her phone and her money. Tessa refused to give up her cell phone because her cell phone contained 3 years worth of lyrics of songs that she wrote for her band, and it also contained new lyrics that she had just written, which she was planning on recording when she went home for Christmas break, which was approaching very quickly. Tessa's refusal would lead to a struggle between her and the teen. One of the teens would put Tessa in a chokehold, while another teen would stand by and be the lookout for witnesses, and the final teen would attempt to take her stuff. Okay? During the struggle, Tessa ended up she fell to the ground, and that's when the teens rummaged through her stuff before fleeing the scene. Tessa's bleeding really heavily at this point, but she actually managed to crawl up some steps where she told witnesses what had happened before losing consciousness and falling face down on the dirty, disgusting New York streets. She would end up being found by a campus security guard who would end up calling police and getting her to Mount Sinai Morningside Hospital, where she would later be pronounced dead. The first teen to be arrested was 13-year-old Zaire Davis on December 13th, 2019, just 2 days after the incident. He was picked up in a lobby near the scene. He was originally picked up for loitering, but police found a knife on him, so they decided to bring him in for questioning. He was also wearing the same clothes that he was wearing on the night of Tessa Majors. Once at the police station, he confesses to everything. He tells police that he and his friends went to the park that night with the intentions of... They were walking to the park another one of his friends had dropped a knife, to which Zaire picked it up and he handed it back to him. Which it plays a role because Tessa's parents they would repeatedly say, "What if he never picked up that knife? Would this have ever happened? Would our daughter still be here?" When they got to the park, they originally followed a man through the park, and actually there's CCTV that corroborates this. They followed a man through the park, and then when he went and he walked up a flight of stairs, the teens stopped following him, and they actually set their eyes on Tessa, and they began to follow Tessa. After he gives his confession, he gives up the names of his two accomplices. 14-year-old Rashawn Weaver and 14-year-old Luciana Lewis. Okay? 14. 13 and 14. Can you, like, imagine 13 years old, 14 years old? Heck, it's mind-boggling. Next one to be picked up is Rashawn Weaver, okay? Rashawn would be arrested in February of 2020 at the Taft House, which is less than a mile from the scene of the incident. Okay, so Rashawn Weaver. Rashawn Weaver is the one that Tessa, okay? He was 14 years old at the time, and he stabbed her in the chest 4 times. Rashawn grew up in a really troubled family. His mother was just 13 years old when she had him, and when he was born, his father was incarcerated. Several family members of him have also been convicted of various crimes. The night Tessa did not go down without a fight. She fought, and she fought hard, and thankfully she did, because that was one of the key pieces that police used to prove that these were the 3 teens that had done this to her. She screams, "Help, I'm being robbed," and during the struggle, she's scratching at Weaver, and she actually bites him. She bites him on the finger, and he would say that this is what makes him so enraged that he pulls out the 13-year-old would say that he didn't know that Tessa had even until he saw the feathers from her coat come flying out. CCTV from that night would also show that Tessa had gotten away 2 times, and 2 times they chased her down and they grabbed her and they continued to her. And it wasn't until the 2 friends that Rashawn Weaver was with pulled him away that the over. While he's incarcerated, Weaver would actually go on to tell one of his defendants that the reason Tessa is because she bit him in the finger. Police would use the DNA evidence that was under Tessa's fingernails to prove that Weaver was the one responsible for Tessa's death. They would also say that it was just so crazy to me, and I don't hopefully I'm never in this situation. I pray to God I'm never in this situation. But the reason that it took police so long to find Rashawn Weaver's is because police leaked information to reporters that would tip off Weaver's mom, and Weaver's mom would end up hiding Weaver for 2 whole months before police were able to locate him and bring him into custody on February 14th, 2020. He would also go on to admit in court statements by his own admission that another person right before Tessa. So this was a pattern for him.
Majors was a freshman with big dreams. She played in a rock band and was considering a career in journalism, aspirations that can never happen. Court documents reveal a heartbreaking struggle, with Majors desperately fighting to survive, clawing at the boys, even biting Weaver, according to police sources.
It paints a gruesome picture of what this young woman endured in her final moments. As alleged, some of the last words she was known to have said was, "Help me, I'm being robbed."
DNA evidence helped incriminate Weaver, plus witness statements, some from the suspect himself. He was already indicted by a grand jury, which convened for more than 3 weeks following the arrest of a 13-year-old suspect in December. The jury heard from 20 witnesses and examined hundreds of pieces of forensic evidence from the crime scene.
Weaver initially pled not guilty, but then would later change his plea to guilty, and he would end up being charged with 2 counts of second degree and 2 counts of first degree. And he would be sentenced to 14 years to life in prison. The final suspect, 14-year-old Luciano Lewis, would be arrested just days after Weaver's arrest. He would turn himself in. He was actually arrested. He would turn himself in days after Weaver's arrest. Lewis was the one that put Tessa in the chokehold while Weaver struggled with her, and Davis was the lookout. Lewis was charged with second degree and first and second degree because he prevented her from escaping to get help. The 13-year-old lookout was sentenced to 18 months in juvenile detention. 13-year-old Zaire Davis was being raised by his uncle after his mom had passed, okay? His uncle is Roosevelt Davis, and hats off to this guy. I'm not kidding you. So, after Zaire is arrested and brought down to the station, his uncle, Roosevelt, comes down to the station. In the interview room, after the police step out, Roosevelt Davis says to his nephew, "Do you see what you effing got yourself into? 'Cause you're hanging out with the wrong effing people instead of bringing your ass home. This ain't like school. You get an effing suspension for like 5 days. This ain't like that. All you needed to do was go the F to school and bring your ass home." I love this uncle. I love this uncle. I do. I love this uncle. Then one of the cops that brought Zaire down to the station had asked him if he wants a drink, okay? And the uncle goes up to the officer who's at the vending machine and tells the officer, "Don't get an effing nothing." I love this uncle. I do. I love this uncle. I wish more of these troubled teens had uncles like this. I'm going to guess not that it prevented anything, but I love this uncle. While the mother of the other one is hiding her son that just 18-year-old, innocent 18-year-old girl. The officer would actually testify in court, though, that he ended up bringing the kid the drink anyway. His uncle would go on to tell him, "Want to be an effing follower? I told you about being a follower. You think I need to tell you about being around people you're not supposed to be around? I'm in an effing precinct. Never in my life have I been in an effing precinct. 46 years old. Never been in an effing precinct till now. This is common criminals. Un-effing real, y'all. I didn't raise you to be like this. This is effing unreal. Like you need something. You're walking around with $200 effing shoes on your feet. You effing hurt me, yo. Any other effing thing you did except for this. At the end of ripping into his nephew, he would plead to detectives to not parade his child, because I guess technically he was his guardian, so he's looking at him as his child. He would beg detectives not to parade his child around before he bursted into tears. But I love this uncle. I know I've said I love this uncle. I do.
What kind of young man is he?
The suspect's aunt and uncle walked wearily past a throng of cameras after the 2-hour family court hearing. On the stand, an NYPD homicide detective who said the 13-year-old admitted being in Morningside Park with 2 others last week to rob someone. After initially targeting a male, the group set their sights on Tessa Majors, an 18-year-old Barnard College freshman. In today's testimony, the teen told detectives he heard Miss Majors call for help and refused to get robbed. She refused to give up any property. The crime has stunned the city, in part because of the ages of those involved.
At sentencing, Inman and Christy Majors' attorney read their victim impact statements. That reads, "There are no words adequate to describe the pain and suffering that the family of Tess Majors has endured since her death. On Labor Day weekend 2019, the parents of Tess Majors dropped her off at Barnard College in New York City to begin her freshman year of college. 100 days later, they brought her home to Virginia in an urn. What words could be used to describe that grief? Compounding the sudden loss of their talented, kind, and beloved daughter, sister, granddaughter, great-granddaughter, cousin, and niece is the incredibly nature of her death, which has been described in grisly detail by the respondent himself. The family can, however, articulate how these hearings have amplified their pain. On December 12th, the day after Tess Majors in Morningside Park, the respondent confessed to his role in the slayings. 6 months later, in his plea deal, the respondent confessed to telling the truth in December. The family notes the negotiated parsings of language of the plea deal, which studiously avoids use of the word murder. They note as well the language used by the Legal Aid Society in their press release regarding the plea deal, which states that Tess Majors' death was tragic. Reading this description of events, some might wonder if perhaps Tess Majors was involved in an incident. Tess Majors did not die in an accident. Tess Majors was plain and simple, and no amount of semantic gymnastics changes that fact. The family also notes that from December 12th until this day, the respondent has shown a complete lack of remorse or condition for his role of Tess Majors. By his own admission, the respondent picked up a that had fallen to the ground and handed it to an individual who then used it to Tess Majors. The family can't help but wonder what would have happened if the knife had been left on the ground. The family of Tess Majors was also impacted by the statement put out by the Corporation Counsel for the City of New York, which claimed that the respondent was not the main actor. As far as the family is concerned, there are no minor actors of Tess Majors. The Corporation Counsel's statement also states that this plea deal resolution is in the best interest of the community. The Majors family wonders how many in the community, any community, including the many Tess was a part of, and the ones that her family continued to be a part of, would agree with this assessment. Tess would have turned 19 on May 11th. That day is coming on without her. The Majors family has experienced their first Christmas without her, a holiday that will forever be tainted by sharing the month. The first Mother's Day without her has come and gone. First Father's Day without her will be this Sunday. The Majors family wakes up thinking about her and goes to bed thinking about her. Her absence is palpable and unrelenting. So guys, let me know what you think of this. Just in case you missed it, The 13-year-old Zaire Davis got 18 months in juvenile detention, and then the other two, Rashawn Weaver and Luciano Lewis, got 14 years to life. So yeah, let me know what you think. Leave me a like, leave me a comment. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sticking around. And God forbid this happens to you. It's not worth it. It's just not worth your life. So be careful out there. And until next time, guys, I love you all.